Hello, good morning. I just wanted to welcome everybody today. Thank you for joining us. We are going to be focusing on the nonprofit industry today. Um, how's everybody doing?
Doing well. Morning,
Good,
David.
good. I'm
Morning,
doing
Liz.
better.
Morning, Cherie.
I got a haircut, so I feel a lot better today. I just wanted to, first off, before we start, I just want to congratulate you guys for, I guess, navigating through this COVID storm. I know it's been a lot of uncertainties, and if you're still here, it's a good thing. So I just wanted to congratulate you guys for being here. Today, pretty much, we're going to focus on the experiences of nonprofits and things as they return back to try to return to some sort of normalcy. So, talk about how the COVID-19 storm has changed things and what we can kind of expect moving forward. Um, let me let me introduce myself so you know who I am. My name is David Brannon. I am a business development executive here at First Call Computer Solutions, and I will be your moderator today. For those of you unfamiliar with First Call, we are a full resource technology company. We specialize in managed IT services, advanced cybersecurity services, network design and implementation, phone systems, and we also help small businesses with websites. We've been in the IT world for 23 years, and we have a staff of over 40 IT professionals. Now I would like to meet our panel, and for today's discussion, oops, sorry about that. Liz, would you like to
Sure.
introduce yourself and speak a little bit about your experience in the industry?
Yes, I am Liz Moore. I'm the Executive Director with Montana Nonprofit Association. We are a membership organization founded on the belief that a strong nonprofit sector is essential to Montana's prosperity and future. We need functional government, a healthy business climate, and a vibrant nonprofit community to make it all work in Montana. So we have 700 members. And I have been with M&A in leadership for 9 years. And our team is a small but mighty group who right now is leading the way in terms of COVID response for nonprofits across the state. And thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. And Cherie, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background in the industry?
Yes, I'm Cherie Bombard. I work at the National Forest Foundation. My role is the Director of Administration. The National Forest Foundation's role is to really engage Americans and also communities to promote the health of the national forest, the 193 million acres of national forests. And our premier partner is the Forest Service, but we are partners also with corporations, foundations, and individuals. And my role here is in the human resources area, working with our president, with our board of directors, risk management, and obviously working with First Call and some of the IT things. So thanks for inviting me.
Hey, thank you for being here. And Connor, would you like to introduce yourself and tell your role?
Fourth generation Montanan, business owner of First Call. I really enjoy businesses, nonprofits. We work with lots of organizations across the state of Montana, trying to align their mission and operations with IT. And so from a COVID standpoint, much like Liz, I want to work with organizations to power through this and not just get back to normal, but get back or get to better than ever. So anything First Call can do to help organizations out there, we're passionate about what we do. And again, want all of those different entities, as Liz mentioned, to really come together and be stronger through this whole thing.
Okay, well, thank you also for taking the time to be here. I'll give us a quick agenda. Today, we are going to speak about the workplace, what has changed. With social distancing, a lot of things have changed, so we're going to speak a little bit on that. We'll talk about 5 keys and what that means in practice. We'll also address what's coming in both the short and long term, actions that organizations can take. And then also Connor at the end is going to talk a little bit about technology and how it's had a huge part kind of facilitating the change. So before we get started, I would like to have both Cherie and Liz speak a little bit about the overall state of what you guys are seeing in the nonprofit industry. Cherie, more specific with the National Forest Foundation, kind of what challenges you guys are seeing, and maybe what opportunities you're also seeing from this. Go ahead and speak first, Liz.
Thank you. Well, we've been meeting with nonprofit leaders really weekly since the middle of March. And, I can remember like March 12th, we were building a website for COVID response. And, the first thing we were sending out is like how to wash your hands. And 2 days later, we were sending things on how to work from home. And then about 3 days after that, it was all about the federal loans. And then it was the state stuff. And so, we're seeing rapid change. And now today we announced our reopening website. And
Right.
So it's very rapid change, and nonprofits, we've done quite a few surveys. Some have shut the doors and just waiting to reopen. Some needed to stay open, food banks, domestic violence shelters, things like that. Or those that don't have a lot of, like Montana Nonprofit Association, we can do our work, from home. And so while we moved out of our office, we didn't stop work at all. So of course, now as we look at reopening, there are a lot of questions, still a lot of questions about funding and money and eWorks and the state stuff. And then a lot of questions about liability and risk management. So I'm glad Cherie is on the line. And then questions about just how to handle the tenacious uncertainty, where that's just, it is a fact that technically we always don't know the future. We think we do, and we plan as if we do, but right now we have to plan knowing we don't know. And that's a different skill. And so, and then of course, how to hang a team together in a very digital environment. So those are the things I would say we're looking at. And there is a lot of opportunity in that. We could talk about that.
And a lot of new. This is not an experience anybody has gone through before, and so it's also just a lot of new. And I really like that fast and furious, rapid change, because that's certainly, it seems all the industries that we've talked to, it's just every couple days, there's something new and significant.
Well, and I think, right now what we're seeing is a certain kind of lethargy. We framed it as the dog days of the pandemic. It's like, we've all said it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, but there's this point in the marathon, which is like the marathon needs to be over already, and it isn't. And so how do you work with the ebb and flow of energy of being kind of exhilarated by new ideas and yet sluggish, because it can only handle so much. And
Right.
So, yeah, and we'll talk about that as we talk about teamwork.
Okay, Cherie, you want to speak a little bit about what you're seeing over there at the National Forest Foundation?
So going back to March, obviously, is when it hit, and we were in the middle of hiring 4 new employees at that time, and half of our employees already work remotely from home, so they were well positioned. But the other half of our employees were here in the Missoula office, and so actually transitioning to telework, it was a big deal to this half of our employees, and the logistics that went along with that, which I'm very thankful to First Call for being very responsive to help us, set up laptops, make sure everybody was able to work and add the appropriate software to work from home. So that was one challenge. And then those people who did work from home and are still working from home. In fact, in our Missoula office, we have 20 positions. 3 of us have come into the office, and the 3 of us, and I am one of them, we feel like we were quarantined, but at work. And
Mhm.
so, you know, and so the people that are working from home, it was a transition, and I think they are still transitioning and getting used to it, because some of them had children or animals or whatever was in their home that also they had to consider. And as an employer, our president, our management team was very considerate and very willing to hear their concerns and very responsive. And so willing to make flex schedules with them, to work with them. We also, for a couple of our employees, they needed to be involved with the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, the FFCRA, which, you know, they could apply for that emergency paid leave or that expanded family leave. They could do both. And we've had employees do that, and we've been willing to be responsive to that, obviously. One other thing about that FFCRA, it's really for employers that are 50 or more employees. And our leadership, even though we are an employer of about 40 employees, our leadership decided to still embrace that. Even though we have very generous leave at the National Forest Foundation, they decided to embrace this to support our employees, and they have. So we had some employees take advantage of that. Obviously, I think Liz mentioned the federal loan program. As a nonprofit, our leadership decided to take advantage of that and apply for that early, right when it came out. I guess some other things is because, you know, humans, that touching, you know, that engagement with humans is a big deal. And one of the ways our nonprofit does it is through events. And field season is usually between spring and November. And so we've had to change and cancel quite a few events that were already on the docket, because we plan, you know, a year in advance. We plan actually 5 years in advance, but the year in advance, actually setting up the logistics for those events, a lot of them had to be canceled. And so another way we're looking at those is potentially virtual events. So, so anyway, that's a little bit about how it's been affecting us. So.
All right, well, let's jump into workplace, and here we go. So just like pretty much every business is right now, most nonprofits are being faced with challenges during the COVID crisis. Many people are returning to the business, and they're having to deal with new guidelines. The day-to-day operations have changed for many. Liz, maybe you could touch on some of those things, some of the operational changes you have noticed, and you know how technology is possibly playing a major role in helping you.
Yeah. With return to work, Liz, where are the majority of nonprofits at right now? Are you just so diverse that it's all over the place, or is there a trend?
Well, it is, we are diverse. And so, but I would say generally we're moving into phase 2, and people are looking at how to phase back. I would say that kind of measured approach is what people are using. It's childcare is a big issue. And I sat on the governor's task force, M&A sat on the governor's task force on the coronavirus relief fund. And a huge emphasis there on how do we make sure there's enough support for not just for licensed registered childcare, but for all childcare, like the summer camps and things like that parents rely on. I mean, people cannot, we have on our team, people cannot return to an office if there's no care.
Yeah, and we have the same challenge.
Yeah, and if care is still not safe, then you know you have to deal with that as an employee. So that's a big one. And then just safety generally, people are all over the place, because people who work with children with disabilities or work in a group home, or seniors who are in isolation, things like that, you know, they're in a very different position than say an association that can, you know, isn't as much interacting with the public. And then as Cherie said, you know, all the arts and conservation organizations are, you know, pivoting to a more virtual type of events and things like that. You know, spring's a pretty major fundraising time, and we can't get that back. And so that's been tough, and very sensitive to the fact that businesses are right alongside us, you know, wondering how they're going to make it and how do we open and all of that. And so contributed income is a part of the nonprofit business model. And so we're really sensitive to the fact that that's changed and businesses may not have the resources to give in the same way. I think a big issue is access to protective equipment, and so that it doesn't need to be medical equipment, but kind of like every nonprofit is just figuring out on their own, where do we get masks, where do we get sanitizer, that kind of stuff.
So would it be fair to say that there is no one size fits all approach, and that while there's certainly knowledge and resources out there, everybody's got to take kind of a very surgical approach, even down to the employee, of gauging, you have this childcare issue, you have an at-risk factor associated, whether it's health or age, and just being very surgical and applying that.
Absolutely, that's a really good way to put it. And I think for employers, that may be a sea change. And as we look at next generation leadership and what appeals to incoming professionals, this flexibility and using more of a performance management approach. I'm a little off script now, but using more of a performance management approach where you get the work done and it isn't as important when you show up at the office or where there's probably parameters around that. But
right.
I think we're probably permanently moved to a more flexible model that is really a combination of what the organization needs and what the employee needs, and how you put those together in an overall human resource approach and really values-based approach.
Sheree, maybe you can speak to that a little bit too, in terms of, there were factors that existed, before COVID hit, that were driving some of that, flexibility. What things had National Forest Foundation, already done, to embrace, kind of the challenges we all face and balancing work, life, and all of those demands?
Well, our organization has, is willing for our employees to talk with their supervisors and explain that whatever their challenges are, so that they can understand and try to be responsive. And so there is a willingness for our organization culturally to be very sensitive to people's needs. We recently had, I was looking at the workplace here that we're talking about. We had one employee with, of course, no names, where they had a newborn, and their childcare in their community was actually going to open up to let children go, and that particular employee had a toddler. And so then the decision was by that doctor and that childcare organization that she has a newborn at home. Bringing a toddler into the childcare situation and having that toddler go back home to a newborn was not something they recommended. So this employee decided to apply for that FFCRA, the emergency paid leave and the expanded leave, so that the toddler could stay home with her and the child in this particular case. But in other cases, we have employees that are working from home, and they figured out ways to navigate and change their schedule. That maybe we had another situation where the employee had a child that was like 12, and there was a need for some extra hands-on with doing schooling at home. And so during the core day that child needed that particular mom, like that 4 hours, that employee wasn't working, but earlier that morning or later in the evening, early in the afternoon, the employee worked. So we had a flexible schedule kind of situation for that employee. So we are trying to be sensitive, and I think that would be the thing that most people should do right now, because it's a lot of pressure for those family members, and then they're still trying to be productive at work as well. So I hope that was addressing what you wanted.
Yeah. It must be super difficult with so many different levels of people being scared, and levels of some people are wearing masks, some people aren't wearing masks. It must be difficult to facilitate all those people and keep everyone feeling safe.
Let's move on to fund development. Yep, go ahead, Sheree.
I was just going to say on that actually was a situation for us, because we have 3 of us that have been coming into the office, and then the other the other 16, 17 are doing telework. And so initially they wanted to keep coming back in. And so we created parameters because the whole idea is for them to be at home and work. And so we created a few parameters where if they needed things, they let us know, we brought it to them at the door so that they weren't, coming in to the workplace and potentially, bringing, coronavirus in. And so the idea was to protect the people that were coming to work and to protect them at home. So, and that also helps alleviate some of that fear. And then once they understood that, everybody was willing to do that, no problem. And we are working on our return to work plan, but it's going to be a little bit of a while. But we have written out a guidelines for returning to work plan. And so that addresses a lot of those things that people are concerned about. We actually did a survey to all of our employees about returning to work, our president did, and asked a bunch of questions to get their feedback and responses and their concerns. Because, as the president, you might like, hey, come on, everybody come back to work. But no, she actually did the survey, heard what their concerns are, and then after that wrote a guidelines to returning to work. And so to allow it to be in a measured way, not in a rushed way, and to allow consideration for everybody's individual needs, while still trying to get all the work done. So.
All right, let's move on. Okay, we want to speak, a little bit about the 5 keys.
David, would you mind backing up one sec?
Sure, no problem.
Fund development, Liz, I know this is top of mind, and I do want to share a few things in terms of what we're seeing on the private industry, because I know, private does a lot of support of nonprofits. We know it's a challenge. We know there's a lot of unknowns, but are there opportunities, that members are seeing of different ways to engage, both on their earned, but also on their contributed income?
Well, yes, I think everyone is re-looking at budgets, and including PPP and EIDL loans and what the state has to offer. But then as far as the more traditional fund development, it's, there are a lot of questions about how to ask right now for contributions at a time when people may be stretched, but
Right.
whether businesses or donors. So a couple of things about that. One is I think more things are moving to virtual right now, but that does not supplant the need for one-on-one relationships. And in fact, right now, maybe even more so, that need for individual outreach, individual checking in, and that may be over the phone, not screened. It's probably not quite in person yet, but a much more high-touch individual approach. People are flooded with digital information and they're fatigued with that, and so anything we can do around being more personal about that is important. And I would say there are opportunities to do things differently. I look at Montana Nonprofit Association. We do a conference once a year that usually draws 400, 450 people. You guys are usually there.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're doing that virtually. Well, on the one hand, that's, a real change and disappointing. But on the other hand, it opens the conference up, that kind of has world-class talent and business representation to a much larger group of Montanans.
Right.
And so that's a positive thing.
Yeah, and I really see from what we've seen with other organizations, as they learn those new platforms, not that everything will end up digital, because it's not a panacea, but you end up with new skills and then potentially a hybrid. You've just got new channels to engage more people in different ways in different times. And that rich content can be reused when it's captured digitally. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Yeah, it's a learning curve, but as organizations get through it, I think they'll end up with really both approaches being stronger in the future. Cherie, on the talking about donations and working with your donors, any tips or recipe or just more echoing of what Liz said?
So one thing that we do in our organization, which we were able to not capitalize on, but actually work with during all of this is our development and communications teams. We have assigned prospect managers that work with our different corporations and our foundations. And so we did this years ago. And so then when coronavirus came, because we were routinely checking in already, and these people already assigned, one person assigned to this corporation, another one assigned, then they were able to just check in and say, how are you doing? And not make it be about an ask or how much more they can do. And organically through that process of them checking in, we have been having some small successes even during this time, because some of the ones that were able respected the fact that we still cared about them. It really isn't about the money. It's been about the relationship all along anyway, about their relationship to the national forests and our relationship with them.
Right.
And so we were able to just continue to check in, and we've been able to have some successes because of that with the people that are capable. I mean, them bringing it up, them offering. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah, so does that help some?
Yeah, and we, just to share from the private side of things, we've been approached by some of the organizations that we support, and same type of thing. It has been conversational, to check in. But at the end of the day, if your mission resonates with us and we're already involved and we're already passionate about what you do, we want to support. And so, even if it's just the question of, are you going to be able to support in the same way that you were? That's a conversation that, we can have. And yes, we can express the uncertainty, and yes, we can express the unknown, but we can also express where we're at, dollars and cents, and again, where our feelings are at, in terms of a specific organization. And there is a lot of organizations on the private side of things, that are performing, well financially. Banks, credit unions, those types of things are doing well. What I call the freedom business, people that are selling motorcycles and campers and those types of things are also doing, very well right now. So there are some blue spots or blue sky spots in the economy. And I'd really encourage nonprofits, to stay in touch with, just as you said, Cherie, the people that across different industry spectrums, because you'll get facts, on what's happening within the ground that will help you plan based off of how that industry has supported you in the past. Don't do guesswork. Don't just go off of what you read in the news. Talk to people that are in the seats that you already know, you're already involved, and that will help you get rid of some of the clouds, that are existing there.
I think, Connor, the other thing is the opportunity for nonprofits to really become very clear on why they exist. And I think, Cherie, like in the time of COVID, yes, there is that crystallizes the value of our forests and the being able to get outdoors. I've seen that with other conservation groups. It's like there's a lot you can't do, but you can still go outdoors. And arts organizations are saying, no, we're not. I mean, they're not saying, but in conversation, they're saying, we're not the food bank. We're not the one taking care of domestic violence, but we are the one bringing this sense of humanity and community and creativity and optimism. And that's our niche. And so I think for all of us it's just a chance to really step back and say, are we essential? What is our space in civil society? And grab a hold of that. And that donors know when you've done that. And
right.
So it's kind of, you can call it focusing in, but it requires the internal organization to be really clear. We are value. We are relevant. There's a lot we're not, but this is what we do that nobody else is doing. And I think to the extent that we can do that, we have a saleable, if you will, mission that donors will respond to.
Okay. Now I wanted to speak a little bit about the workplace and how you are keeping morale up for like mental illness has been coming up as a big issue for people being quarantined, staying at home, working remote. I just wanted you to speak a little bit about how you are helping keep morale up in that aspect.
I think that this is a time for real situational leadership. You know, any of us that have done any leadership work know that there's, you know, there are different times for different kinds of leadership. And so as far as the immediate team goes, if we are, you know, to the extent that we are more digital than we were, there's a different set of tools. We've talked about flexibility, and Cherie, you've talked about that. And yes, you do have to deal with kind of one employee at a time, and which is a great practice anyway. And then as an association, we're really thinking about how to help nonprofits work with staff teams in a more kind of holistic way that recognizes at the end, you know, we're humans. I'm sitting in my dining room, you know, you can see the color I like. That's, you know, that's something that we didn't know about each other before, and just inviting that in whatever ways we can. That doesn't really address the mental illness issue. It's more around mental well-being, but the pervasiveness of anxiety and stress call for a different set of tools. And I think it's a leadership challenge for organizational leaders, and one that we need to be as creative and innovative in meeting that challenge as we are in meeting our revenue challenges, our strategic planning challenges, fund development, all of those kinds of things.
Yeah, it seems that, you know, even though we're disconnected, we've found, you know, you're finding more ways to be more connected. Go ahead, Connor, sorry.
Cherie, we were going to add something.
On that note, one of the things that our leadership decided to do during this whole time is we have all these people teleworking, and of course all of our remote staff we're in 9 different states. And so we decided weekly that our president would have an online, we're using Adobe Connect for this particular thing. We're also using Zoom for other things, but we basically bring all the staff together to just, you know, we have our regular staff meetings, but this is a different kind of meeting. This is just come in, what's everybody doing? What are you doing different now that you weren't doing before COVID at your home, in your life? What did you do exciting this last weekend? So we've been doing that once a week to encourage our employees and to help them, you know, feel good about what we're doing. Also, our president meets with our board members as well, and there's a lot to be learned because they're all across the United States, all of our board members, and they have ideas. So that helps, and I think it helps keep them focused. They even have a little kind of an ad hoc committee going on to see what they can do for first responders, focusing on instead of themselves, you know, keeping the focus on others and the forests and things like that, and the employees. How are you doing? What are you doing? That kind of thing. Right. And so I think that's in the mental health, the wellness, well-being aspect is what we're trying to do.
Well, and it's probably a good transition here. You know, Liz talked about tenacious uncertainty. Those types of things can also bring back certainty, you know, that your peers are there, you know, that they have real lives, that work is still going on, you know, that kind of helps ground people. So let's transition here.
Now, Connor, while we're moving to the next slide, I would echo what Cherie said. We are, our staff actually meets daily, and we only have a team of 8, but you know, we have a long meeting once a week that's strategy, and then the rest of the week we use Teams a lot. So during the day, we don't say, do you have time for a call? We just dial somebody up on Teams, and that really works. And then we do a 15-20 minute check-in every morning, and you know, it's worked. It won't work forever, but it's been effective.
Yep. Teams is a great tool. We've utilized it here, and it's it really helps. So
yeah, immediate.
Yeah. So now that we've have the functions identified, it's important to simplify everything. So 5 keys are: work is still work. If you had consumer services before, you're going to still have them now. The norms have changed. Organizations have had to institute distancing and cleanliness, and given these new norms, we've got to figure out the best way to move forward and work as a team. So, with that being said, nonprofits are still in the reopening phase. What we need to focus on is safety and teamwork and what it looks like specific to these functions. Cherie, given the norms have changed, talk to us about maybe some obstacles you were experiencing and maybe some of the opportunities you were seeing at the National Forest Foundation. And maybe also touch on how teamwork is helping play a successful role in all that moving forward.
Well, I think it really all starts with teamwork initially, because we have natural teams. We have, our development team, our communications team, we have our conservation team. We have our different teams through our admin and accounting teams. So we have our different teams, and so they have to work well within themselves by checking in with themselves, and then we come with the bigger team, which is all really drilling up to the whole National Forest Foundation, that we want to promote the health of the national forest. So it really all just comes down with teamwork anyway, and because this is something that our leadership's very interested in and has been for a long time. When COVID came, we were able to use that and continue to use that, and that kind of gives a feeling of normalcy right there, even though everything doesn't feel very normal. Keeping that team structure in place gives you kind of a grounding, and I think that's what our president and our management team was going for. And in terms of taking it through to cleanliness and distancing, obviously we came up with our one office where we have half of our employees, 3 working at work, the rest teleworking. That created the distance. And the return to work plan, the way we're going to do it is we're looking at potentially, we have 3 office suites, and we're looking at maybe allowing 3 people to work in each suite instead of
a phased approach.
A phased approach instead of bringing all 20 back. So we're looking at maybe 9 coming back, and that really will be dependent on what their concerns are. They may still be having childcare issues. There may be summer camps, as Liz was saying earlier, and some things like that. So we have to, we're created that as the opportunity. We have a couple of people that are working at telework from home, but they have a few things they need in the office, or we've been supporting their functions, some of their functions, the 3 of us that are here. So maybe they'll just come in 1 day a week to take care of their own functions in the future, and then the rest of the time at telework. So this is creating and maintaining that distancing. The one thing we talked about are the masks and the common areas. So our common areas is like the kitchen, the conference room, the copier room, obviously not the bathroom, but these other areas. And so maybe it is 1 person in the kitchen at the time, 2 people in the conference room based on the size of that room, 1 person in the copier room. So we've actually defined those kind of things to help continue with distancing. And as far as the masks right now, we're going to let that be something that if those 9, 3 per suite come in, whether they want to wear the masks at their desk or when they're in the common spaces, we're going to keep that optional to the individual. And there may be continued discussions on that. Maybe that'll change and we all feel that we need masks in the common spaces all the time. We have to be open to that flexibility and willingness to change a little bit with this. So we're maintaining the distancing. The cleanliness aspect, we have a cleaning service that comes in, and we've slowed down that service because there's only been 3 of us at work. But we did a couple of weeks ago have that cleaning service come back in and do a deep cleaning. And the deep cleaning included going into every office on all the keyboards, mouses, door handles, light switches, anywhere a person could touch. So we made sure that was done. And we talked with that cleaning service about, as the phased in approach is going to be happening when people come back to work, that they would do their normal weekly cleaning, and then 1 night a week in the middle of the week that just focuses on sanitizing those common touch points in our office. And that cleaning service is willing to do that for us. So that kind of takes care of the cleaning. The other thing is we went and we use Encompass Supply and as one of our suppliers, and they were able to get us hand sanitizer And so we purchased, they're on the floor over here, they just arrived yesterday, 16-ounce bottles of the gel hand sanitizers. It was a little expensive. It was $18.99 a bottle. And I was like, why so much? Is that price gouging? We're talking 16 ounces.
Yeah.
The pump. Anyway, and they said it's not. They're maintaining the same margins in their what they make, but the raw supplies for the hand sanitizer are short. There's a shortage of them, and that's what's driving the price. So we bought one for every person's desk, so 20 bottles. And the other thing is we did buy 3 or 4 gallons of bleach, and we bought those spray bottles where we are doing the dilution there. And so what we thought is every person would have their own hand sanitizer at their desk. They would have their own spray bottle so that they can keep their space taken care of. And then the cleaning service is really going to focus on those common areas. So that's to the cleanliness. So I hope I answered your question there.
Cherie, lots of good detail and information, a lot of things people are implementing. Liz, as you're listening to all of that and thinking about all of the members, there's the tactical things, then there's the emotional side of it. What's running through your mind?
Well, we've talked about 4 things that really are guiding our response. So one is that for organizations to be informed. And, people are insecure and there's so much we can't control. So what can we control? Well, we can steep ourselves in information. We have a web page that's devoted to reopening. Shortly after this, we have at 11 o'clock today, we have a town hall meeting where we have the state medical officer on speaking, and a communicable disease guy and infectious disease guy, doc, speaking to nonprofits. So being informed in all the different ways we need to be. Use a measured approach. In other words, if it, try it but try it in pencil. Walk it back if it doesn't work. We're just trying stuff. We don't know. That's hard in a litigious age, in a litigious society, to kind of say, we're going to try this, because what if we get it wrong? And then who are our partners? Who else is doing this work that we can learn from? With First Call, I think you're doing this kind of informational approach, and who else is who else is doing domestic violence work? Who else is doing outdoor work? And what are the protocols around that? Because every industry has its own protocol in the nonprofit sector. And then you make your best decision. And that, again, goes back to leadership, that there's this, you take all the information, and at the end of the day, you have to decide something.
Yep.
And so you do. And, as a leader, you hope that you're a learner and a listener. And it sounds like, Cherie, you have a leader who is very much that. And those are the skills we need, those soft skills. And because we don't have the concrete answers we want. And then just understanding that there is really that it's valid and necessary, actually, to read the emotional tone of how people are. And on any given week, somebody who was jazzed about their work last week might be in a trough this week. That's okay. And not okay in the sense of no holds barred, like you let everything go, but more like recognizing where people are and finding ways to give them the tools they need to move back up to the performance level you need. And so whether that's take the afternoon off, rejuvenate, just spend the time with your kids. Don't be conflicted this afternoon. We'll see you back tomorrow. So you're not letting go of the performance expectation, but you are meeting people where they are. And so again, I think it comes down to leadership skills and a team's ability to flex with their teammates and pick up the slack. So if you get a culture that says we'll step in as needed for one another, rather than that's not my job. So that starts a long time ago. You can't just create that culture when COVID hits. So yeah, those are some of the things I'm thinking about. But having a framework, I think, is really important, so that be informed, be measured, think about your partners, and then make the best decision.
Well, we'll close with analysis paralysis. Absolutely, those leaders need to avoid it. And the other thing I want to say is that in terms of the many other industries that are out there outside of the nonprofit world, they've already moved through that reopening type of stage. And so if you've got relationships, with banks or with other types of critical infrastructure companies, they've already moved through that. Those leaders are other resources to talk to see, the technical, the emotional, and the personal side of things. So great stuff. Okay.
We better get moving forward here.
Yep.
Because Liz has to get going here. So we'll move into the phases part. Next phases are going to be crucial for many businesses. There's going to be operational, technical, and emotional aspects to everything. So I just wanted to touch quickly, I guess, on, phase 2 reopening is about to start, what actions you think need to be taken in the next 30 to 60 days, and maybe some key actions beyond that.
Yeah, we've touched on quite a bit of this already, but any other new quick thoughts, Cherie?
I think the key is a measured approach, and I think being flexible, being willing to listen and being sensitive to each other's needs while still maintaining, the workload and moving forward and keeping the focus on what needs to get done to support the mission of each organization. It's a little bit of a dance, actually, but if you're aware of those areas, and including the teams, as we were saying earlier, then you can be intentional about it as a leader in the management, as a management team in your organization. You can be intentional about it. So I think identifying those areas and using them to help you navigate it is important.
How about you, Liz?
Clarity, as Cherie said, I think clarity of expectations, having policies in place that are flexible but still there. Maybe you draw them with dotted lines, not hard lines. And then communication. I heard somebody say early on that the key tool you need in a pandemic is communication. And so with our constituents, with our members, and with our staff team, just being as clear as possible where we can be, and then communicating.
Okay.
Great.
All right, Connor, do you want to speak quickly on?
Yeah. So we've seen organizations kind of in two camps, and it's kind of the same. Either you are culturally ready for this, or you've had to make a lot of cultural changes. Same thing on the technical side. Many organizations, are very much in the long-term view of email as their primary form of communication, and have had to try and react and embrace some different methods. It's all a new frame of reference. And so just like you're taking that frame of reference from a fundraising standpoint, from an event standpoint, from an operations standpoint, you also want to take that new frame of reference from a technical standpoint and revisit kind of your vision and your plan. And then that doesn't have to be some super complex thing, but once you've arrived at it with your leadership team, commit to it. If those aren't strengths that you have on your existing leadership team, just like Liz said, you need to find a partner or a resource that does have those strengths and can help you, make that concrete and actionable. A lot of talk about remote work, and I just want all nonprofits not to have that as the end point in mind. It's not your destination. You really need to be thinking about data and voice flexibility as your destination. And so you can leverage tools like Microsoft 365. You can revisit your core software applications that you use and see, okay, based off of the last 60 days or so, where have we run into issues? Also, phone systems, video, all of that type of communication, has become more important as we've got the distance involved. Some of your organizations also have compliance requirements like HIPAA involved, maybe PCI. And so as you're making those changes, don't lose sight, even though it seems like right now it's a little bit more, kind of do what you want. That's short term. Those regulators will be coming back saying, okay, things have settled down. We need more order. So don't lose sight of that. And then cybersecurity and backups, you know, we've kind of been inundated with this too, of hearing, okay, as we've moved around offices, homes, gotten more mobile, we need to revisit cybersecurity. I would just say, yes, you do, but be careful about, make sure you decide how much do we need to revisit that. You know, there's two different types of organizations, and you kind of need to decide which camp you're in, standard risk or high risk. If you're in the high risk category, you know, make sure that you're also looking at advanced types of cybersecurity, you know, methods, because it's similar to COVID. You know, if we don't get our behaviors in check and our tools in check and our processes in check, it can be a game-ending situation. And then the last thing is just workforce development. And it's like we've talked about with the other things. You have to think down to the individual employee and where they're at and get surgical with it and make sure that they have the understanding of the new tools, what the norms are that you want around those tools, give them those guidelines, give them that coaching, and then you'll begin to see the team normalize and begin to perform. I think what I've seen a lot of organizations do is embrace a lot of Band-Aids, Zoom here, you know, Adobe Connect, lots of different pieces and parts. It becomes confusing for employees and it becomes difficult for employers to set those guidelines and expectations. So as you move forward with your planning, try and consolidate, streamline, and then that whole workforce development becomes easier as well. So anyway, enough from me.
Okay, thanks, Connor. I'll move forward. We do have to get Liz out of here, so quickly, you know, we've no need to beat a dead horse. We will review the quick points. You know, work still work. Norms have changed. We obviously have to embrace new challenges. You know, operational, technical, emotional, and one of the new huge challenges is staying connected. People. Industry and market. It's very difficult when you can't have face-to-face meetings, obviously. Liz, I know you have to go, so I would just want to thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. Your information has been incredible, and it's going to help a lot of people through this storm. Is there anything else you'd like to add before you take off here?
Oh, I think you guys are really uniquely positioned to help us deepen our relationship with technology in a way that can create connection and help us meet the challenge. And so we're proud to be partners with you. That's been a long-standing relationship, and we really appreciate it. And so thank you. And Cherie, it was really nice to be able to listen to your approach and the practicalities of that. And you know, that's really good for us, just to have that grounding in like how an individual organization is dealing with things. And so thank you. Thanks so much for allowing us to be part of the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move quick. Oh, sorry, wrong way. Questions and answers. You know, I'd just like to give a couple of minutes to any questions or to give Cherie the opportunity to add anything else. Or yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Katie, is there anything out there on the Q&A panel at all?
Yeah,
not currently, no.
Okay.
Cherie, closing remarks from you.
I think we've been in a storm for the last few months, and when you're in a storm, there's all types of things that are going on, and as you were stating all through this presentation, whether it's emotional, operational, logistical, I mean, all the different things that go on during a storm. And the leaders of the organization, you have informal, informal leaders, they all make a difference in the storm and how fast you can get moved through it into a feeling of normalcy, even if it's a new normalcy, even if it's a temporary new normalcy. And I think that's what organizations, if they're intentional and they're thinking about it and they really care, not only about their employees, but their all their partners, whether it's a corporation, a foundation, an individual, if they're caring about them, it will come through. And
Yep.
Communication's the key, teamwork's the key. All of those things are tools in that toolbox to get you to where you can get to kind of a performance state is the ultimate goal. But yeah, anyway, thank you all. Thanks, Liz. Nice to meet you. I have seen quite a few of your emails and responded to a few of them recently. And so anyway, I just thank you all. Thanks, First Call. I love First Call. So anyway, we have a history. So thank you all.
Thank you.
David, would you jump to the resources slide? I know that there's the COVID response resources that the Nonprofit Association has put forth. We've also provided a link to nationalforests.org. Liz, any other quick things on this at all?
I don't think so. We just opened up our reopening page. So it's got, you know, protocols and how to clean old buildings and, you know, kind of things that are unique. So yeah, it's a great page and hopefully will be useful to our membership and beyond.
Well, and as you mentioned, it's nice to have that distilled down, all of the information down to something that's within your industry group, because it's you go from the generic, you know, to the more applicable stuff, and it's something you can talk about amongst your peers.
Yeah.
Lastly,
we have.
I want to just highlight a few resources that we have. So one, we've got wonderful people that you can connect with and have conversations with if you're struggling to figure out where are you and where are you going from a technical transformation standpoint.
I am one of those wonderful people.
Yep. And then we have some e-guides as well. You know, one of the things Liz mentioned is Microsoft Teams, and it's not Zoom. There's a lot more to it. It really does create a lot of that connection and collaboration that people are yearning for, and lines up really with the way that people work. And so if you don't understand what Microsoft Teams is, or you kind of do, and it's a buzzword, we've put together an e-guide, 6 ways Microsoft Teams can boost your operations.
It's great. I just wanted to say real quickly that working from remote, since we've adopted Microsoft Teams, it has absolutely made my job way easier and helped me stay connected with the people remotely. So it's a great tool. I would suggest checking it out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to looking at that. We use Teams, but
it has so many aspects that you don't even, you know.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to hop off and I'm going to say goodbye a little bit early, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate your time, Liz, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
And then next to that, you know, there's been a lot of these COVID crisis guides out there. And so we've put together a leadership performance guide, really more from a technologist perspective. And so again, if you've got strong operational, strong human resource, but you're feeling like, I'm not sure from a technical standpoint, you know, how we can move things forward to a better place, this is a broader, more education guide, you know, that might be a good resource for you. And then lastly, many organizations have found their phone systems just to be way too rigid. You know, they're using technology that's 10, 15 years old. And we've got a couple of different solutions that are out there, and you can learn more about those at phonesystemsmontana.com. So hopefully that's some good education stuff, you know, for leaders out there to be able to embrace and then turn into action items as it makes sense. So David, thank you very much. Cherie, always wonderful to see you. And again, wonderful practical insights, you know, from the leadership, you know, down to the workspace. So thank you for being here.
Yeah,
thank you, Connor. Thank you, Cherie.
Makes sense.
Thanks, you guys.
All right.